The studio of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert shined brightly beneath the stage lights, the audience bursting into applause as they eagerly anticipated a night filled with laughter. Millions more tuned in from their screens at home, watching as two prominent figures took their seats across from each other, Stephen Colbert and Caroline Leavitt. But no one could have foreseen what was about to unfold. Before diving into the story, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest updates. Seated confidently in his host's chair, Stephen Colbert flashed his signature smile, his eyes gleaming with intelligence and sharp sarcasm. For over 2 decades, he had mastered the art of satire, skillfully turning political discourse into witty, cutting commentary. Opposite him sat Caroline Leavitt, the youngest White House press secretary in history. Her platinum blonde hair striking, her sharp gaze unwavering, she was a fierce representative of conservative Gen Z, a steadfast defender of the Trump administration, and someone unafraid of confrontation. Colbert kicked things off with a well-timed quip, his tone playful yet laced with intent. "Caroline, are you here to defend Trump or to give me a crash course on making TikToks for your generation?" Laughter erupted from the audience, applause breaking out. But Leavitt didn't even blink. She leaned forward, flashed a cool, knowing smile, and fired back instantly. "I'm here to speak the truth, Stephen, something you may not have tried after 2 decades of turning everything into a punchline." The laughter in the room faltered, replaced by murmurs of surprise. Colbert hadn't expected such a swift counterattack. The mood in the studio shifted, lightheartedness giving way to a charged tension. Cameras panned to the audience, capturing jaws slightly dropped and hushed whispers between spectators. For a brief moment, Colbert was caught off guard. But, ever the seasoned host, he quickly recovered, flashing the familiar grin that millions had come to know. Leaning forward, hands resting on his desk, his voice still dripping with sarcasm, he shot back, "Truth, huh, Caroline? So tell me, has satire changed the world, or do you believe only your White House speeches can do that?" Chuckles rippled through the crowd, and some even clapped, clearly still in Colbert's corner. But Leavitt didn't flinch. Sitting up straighter, arms crossing over her chest, her gaze locked onto his. "Satire?" she began, her voice calm, yet cutting like a blade. "That's just your excuse, Stephen. An easy way to dodge real responsibility. You mock everything, politics, people, even serious issues. But what have you actually built from it? You make your audience laugh, they go home, and the world stays exactly the same. Meanwhile, I stand before the press every single day, facing real questions, giving real answers, and defending what I believe in." She let her words hang in the air, giving them weight. A few hesitant claps came from one corner of the room, but for the most part, the audience remained silent, waiting for Colbert's next move. Colbert, unwilling to let Leavitt seize the upper hand on his own turf, let out a soft laugh, a mix of genuine amusement and carefully crafted performance. "Caroline, I'm not dodging anything," he replied, his confidence rebuilding. "Laughter is my weapon. I expose the truths that people like you try to bury, the failed policies, the empty promises of the administration you defend. I don't need to stand at a podium to change how people think. I do it right here every night, with millions watching." Thunderous applause erupted, cheers ringing out from the front row. Colbert acknowledged them with a nod, as if he had just landed a decisive blow. But Leavitt remained unfazed. Tilting her head slightly, she offered a thin smile, the kind that hinted she was about to deliver a knockout punch. "Really, Stephen?" she challenged, her voice tinged with mockery. "What exactly have you changed, aside from making people laugh for 30 seconds? You claim to expose the truth, but all I see is you throwing cheap jokes at people who are actually doing the work. I fight the press, Congress, and the world to defend what I believe in. And you? You sit in this safe studio, making money by mocking others, never putting yourself at any real risk." The energy in the room shifted. Some audience members nodded, others exchanged uncertain glances. The earlier laughter had given way to murmurs. Colbert held his grin, but for the briefest moment, a flicker of irritation crossed his eyes. He lightly tapped his fingers on the desk, a tell that loyal viewers recognized as his way of gathering his thoughts. "Caroline," he said, his tone now less playful. "You say I don't put myself at risk? I've been criticized, threatened, and even sued for the things I say on air. I don't just sit here reading off a script. I question people in power. People like you. And I do it in my own way." But before he could finish, Leavitt cut in, her voice rising slightly, not out of anger, but with unwavering control. "Questioning? No, Stephen, you throw stones and then hide behind laughter. You don't face real consequences. You have a team writing your jokes, an entire room of people programmed to clap for whatever you say. I stand alone in front of hundreds of reporters, every single day. No script. No safety net. You call what you do risk. I call it privilege." She paused, her stare unrelenting. The scattered applause from Colbert's loyal fans faded, replaced by something else. Curiosity. Some audience members began looking at Leavitt differently. She was no longer just another guest, but a force to be reckoned with. Colbert pressed his lips together, clearly calculating his next move. He leaned forward, attempting to slip back into his comfort zone, sarcasm. "Caroline, you're making me sound like a clown in a circus," he said, raising an eyebrow. "But if I'm not doing anything meaningful, why are you here? Sitting across from me, defending your honor." He winked at the crowd, hoping to recapture their laughter. But Leavitt didn't take the bait. "I'm here because you've mocked what I and millions of others believe in," she shot back without hesitation. "You see it as a joke, but for us, it's real life. You can laugh all you want, but don't expect me to sit here quietly while you turn it into a circus." She leaned in slightly, her eyes locked on Colbert's, daring him to come up with a response weighty enough to match her words. Colbert took a deep breath, forcing a smile. "Okay, Caroline. You're tougher than I expected. But we're just getting started, aren't we?" He chuckled, but this time, the audience's laughter was sparse, not enough to drown out the quiet strength radiating from Leavitt. She gave a small nod, as if acknowledging his attempt, but her eyes said something else. She wasn't done. Colbert, the seasoned host who had bested countless politicians and celebrities with his sharp wit, sat stiffly, gripping the edge of his desk. His smile, usually effortless and knowing, had faded into something uncertain, something defensive. The crowd was no longer laughing. They weren't even murmuring. They were simply watching. Leavitt, poised and composed, didn't back down. Her voice, steady yet searing, filled the silence like a blade cutting through smoke. "You say you don't mean to ruin lives, Stephen. That it's all just entertainment. But tell me, how many people like Jake have you laughed at and then forgotten? How many times have you dismissed real consequences as just part of the business?" She let the question hang in the air, her eyes unflinching as they bore into Colbert. Colbert exhaled, rubbing his fingers together, his usual quick-witted response failing him. "Caroline, I'm not in the business of tearing people down. I don't target individuals, Leavitt cut him off, her voice rising just slightly, but her control never slipping. "No, Stephen. You don't think you target individuals. But you do. And people like Jake? They don't get a second chance. They don't have an audience ready to cheer them on. They get mocked, torn apart online, and then forgotten while you move on to the next joke." Colbert blinked, shifting in his chair. He glanced at the crowd, perhaps hoping for some reassuring laughter, some sign that he still had the room. But the audience wasn't offering him an easy escape. Some sat with arms crossed, others leaned forward, waiting for what he would say next. I get it," he finally said, forcing a small chuckle, though the humor didn't reach his eyes. "You want to make me the villain here. But Caroline, my job is to challenge power, to call out hypocrisy. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't be doing my job." Leavitt tilted her head slightly, considering his words, before delivering the final blow. "No, Stephen. Your job is to make people laugh. And you do that well. But don't pretend you're some fearless truth-teller when, at the end of the day, you get to hide behind a script, a team, and a studio full of people who clap on cue." The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in a long time, The Late Show didn't feel like a comedy show. It felt like something else entirely. Something real. Something raw. Colbert opened his mouth, then closed it again. His fingers tapped the desk, a nervous habit that no longer seemed playful, but rather revealing. Leavitt, still calm, still composed, simply sat back in her chair, arms crossed, unwavering. And for once, Stephen Colbert, the master of satire, the king of late-night comedy, had nothing left to say.